Hey guys, how's it going? It's Danconia and welcome back to the Overwatch League Roundup. Stage 2 review. Okay, so I want to clear something up a minute. I am quite badly ill right now, and I don't really want to go into the ins and outs of it. It's quite bad, and that's probably is the reason why there is not so much content on the channel as I would like right now. I've got a lot of content planned, it's just I don't have the ability to make it. I was meant to make this video a good week or so ago, and here I am, making it a week or so later than I scheduled. But we have to do the league roundup. That is important, and I don't want to miss it. So, Stage 2 review. We saw a lot during Stage 2. We expected the meta to shift at the start of Stage 2, and it didn't, unfortunately. We have seen the emergence of a counter to goats, which is Hammond / Wrecking Ball and 3 DPS, although it's not been enormously effective, because if it had been enormously effective, goats wouldn't be played. There is not a lot of counters to goats right now, hence the fact it's been around so long. So, what did we see in Stage 2? Well, we saw quite a bit, didn't we? Let's have a look, shall we? Now, there are some teams that made a resurgence in Stage 2, and a team that's never won a #1 seed in the league table also got that #1 seed. That's the San Francisco Shurk. They'd never been able to top the standings after a stage until now. Brilliant for them. Vancouver don't top the standings for the first time, but it was fairly even. They both had 7 wins on the board, so there you go. London had a resurgence this stage, finishing 3rd. Again, we expected this from a few teams, that they'd have good stages this time around, because this stage had a fairly nice fixture schedule for some of these teams, including London. In all fairness, I kind of expected London to go 7-0. For them to go 6-1, it was a bit disappointing. But they do top the Atlantic Division for the first time over the New York Excelsior. So that's massive for London. That's the first time they've ever done that. In 4th, we had the Gladiators. Gladiators again, looking better. Looking much, much better than they did at the start of the season, and they're enjoying a very good run of form right now. It'll be interesting to see when all these teams play off against each other. New York Excelsior, though, this was a bad stage for them. Finishing 5th, this is the lowest they've ever finished in a stage. The 2 losses to Atlanta really did hurt them, and they didn't manage to, although they gave the Vancouver Titans a really good game in the playoffs, they didn't manage to get past them, so it's really given us an indication of where the New York Excelsior are at right now, and in the GOATS meta, they're not as good as Vancouver or Shurk, in my opinion, and that's unfortunate for them. Question is, are they as good as the likes of Gladiators in London? We just don't know, but in the next stage, we hopefully will find out. So, there's 3 teams in Stage 2 that had a really good stage, and that was Dallas Fuel, Hangzhou Spark, and the Shanghai Dragons. The 2 latter, the Hangzhou Spark and the Shanghai Dragons, both got playoff berths as well, which is fantastic for those teams. I mean, Shanghai's rejuvenation since last season has been magnificent. I think we all expected it, considering quite how badly they did last season. I'm really pleased for Shanghai. Also, Hangzhou. I mean, in my opinion, Hangzhou could do what the Philadelphia Fusion did last season, and they could come along and shock quite a few people in the coming stages. So they're a team really to watch out for. They are building. They are building slowly but surely. Dallas Fuel, again, they're looking really solid right now. When they go up against the slightly better teams, they look like they lack slightly. But again, in the GOATS meta we're currently in, we are seeing a big gulf between the big teams and the not so big teams, or the second tier teams. There's kind of the tiers that are going on in the Overwatch League right now, and San Francisco Shock and Vancouver are right at the top in Tier 1. So, again, you look at Chengdu Hunters, we want to move on to, they missed out narrowly, so did Seoul Dynasty again. Seoul I've been disappointed with, I'm not going to lie. I was expecting a big stage from Seoul, and they really didn't deliver. I don't know whether it's a good idea permanently keeping Fisher out. Marvel's doing a great job, but I think if Seoul were to constantly switch between the aggressive style of Fisher and the defensive style of Marvel, they would be incredibly difficult to predict. And I think that's what caught London out at the end of Stage 1. So, I would like to see Seoul go back to that. I know a lot of people don't like teams constantly switching and making substitutions, but I think that could benefit Seoul big time. So, it'll be interesting to see what they do in Stage 3. Philadelphia Fusion are on a bad run right now. This is mainly due to the meta not favouring Fusion. We don't want to see Carpe on Zarya. He gets outclassed a lot of times. He got outclassed against London by Profit. So, Fusion seems to be like waiting for the bus in terms of the meta change. At the moment, that doesn't look like it's coming anytime soon. We've had a 3-3 roll at 3-3, a 2-2-2 roll lock debunked for Stage 3, so that's unlikely to happen. So where do Fusion go from here? They need a decent Stage 3. It's going to be tough for the Fusion. Atlanta Reign, very bad start to the stage, but since the 2 wins over New York Excel, looking much better. Finally adjusting to Baby Bay after they lost to Fran. And hopefully they can continue that way, because I want to see Atlanta do fairly well, and I want to see them in their season playoffs, because I think they're a really entertaining team to watch, especially with Dogman shouting his mouth off. Boston Uprising, again, it's push-pull with Boston. They do something really good, and you think, oh man, they're on the up, and then all of a sudden, oh, you know, it's difficult to predict the Boston Uprising, but they're a team that could certainly cause a few issues to the big teams, and again, a meta shift could do anything right now, and eventually, perhaps in Stage 4, if we were to get 2-2-2, that would make a massive difference to how the league looks right now. Valiant are also in around 13th. Big turnaround since Stage 1. I mean, they went winless in Stage 1. So to get 3 wins on the board is big for the Valiant. They will slowly creep up that league. I think it's too late for top 6. But certainly the second playoffs, I would call them, are certainly within reach for the Valiant. Toronto Defiant, they had a brilliant start to the season. They had like a phenomenal start to the season. And this stage has been rather disappointing. I think that's because teams have worked out Toronto. And I thought, right, if we shut down so-and-so or so-and-so, then they're not going to be able to do anything. Toronto need to be a bit more inventive, I think. And then we see Toronto really push forward. Again, it's also been a difficult fixture schedule. And fixture schedules can work in some teams' favours in different stages, especially with how the league works compared to last year. Last year it was very clear cut. You play every team in every stage in the inaugural season. This year you don't. So some stages can look abnormally bad for some teams, but that's due to their really tough fixture schedule. Hence the San Francisco Shock in Stage 1 where they went 4-3, but actually they had to play Vancouver twice. So, yeah. Moving on, Paris Eternal. I am disappointed with Paris right now. Very disappointed. Coming into this season, we thought Paris would be one of the best teams on GOATS, and it turns out they're one of the worst. I think it's mainly down to their Zarya play. I don't think Soon can quite do it. Difficult, because unfortunately, I think if Paris had a really good Zarya, say if they had, I don't know, Profit, I think they'd be a playoff team, without a doubt. I just think they lack that damage deal. And again, it's a long off stage, and the league doesn't come back until June the 7th. So you could see signings made that will make a big difference to these teams. Valiant have already done that. So it's interesting. Guangzhou Charge in 17th are about where I'd expected them for this stage, to be quite honest. Guangzhou Charge, they had a very good Stage 1, but then they're a team that can be read now, and they need to be very inventive. Again, in a DPS meta, I would expect Guangzhou Charge to do much better than they do now. It's just, meta can have a massive effect. Washington in 18th, they're actually improving. They've made some decent signings, they're improving. It's going to take a while though. Florida Mayhem are still a shambles in 19th. That's because Florida are moving to an all-Korean roster and nothing is ready. It's disappointing that Florida came into this season, in my opinion, underprepared, and they've paid the price, because basically with only about one win on the board, they're basically out of the season playoffs now. I don't see them making up the ground. And then we have to talk, unfortunately, like I did the other day, about the Houston Outlaws. We all know, if you've watched that video, what's going on with Houston. They are plummeting down the league, and without investment or changing personnel, it ain't going to go any other way. Unless we go into a Junkrat meta, which we're not going to. So, there's not much to say about Houston. They're just kind of waiting for that big moment. But then we move on to our playoffs, where we actually saw some surprising results. London got torn apart by Hangzhou. I mean, I'm not sure that it was Hangzhou just being so blindingly good or London being absolutely horrendous. I think London sometimes get stuck on goats too much. They're like, this is the meta, we have to play it. Well, actually you don't. If there's a brick wrecking your team, go dive Pharah. And then Prophet or Birdwings Pharah can wreck that Brigitte. Especially no offense to Hangzhou, but a Brigitte that Hangzhou can produce. So, London needs to be a bit more flexible, which is something I'm surprised that I'm saying, considering it's London Spitfire and the players they've got. But they are up to 4th in the overall standings, so that's good for London. And it's a big stage coming up for London. They have to play NYXL twice this coming stage. Those two are going to be big matches, and it will tell us where London and XL are at. If XL don't win both of those matches, I have to say London are better right now, which would be a surprise. Hangzhou, though, impressed me. Yes, they got swept by the Shock in the semi-final, but Hangzhou really did impress me in the stage playoffs, and I hope they can push on from there, because they're in 8th currently. We're only just outside of those overall playoffs. So, they're hunting down the Dallas Field, the Gladiators, the Spitfire. I don't think they're going to catch the Shock, Excelsior, or Titans, because they've got too much of a lead now, but it's an interesting stage coming up for Hangzhou, definitely. Vancouver obviously got handed their first loss at the end of the stage, at the end of the stage playoffs against Shock. I felt this was coming, and I felt it needed to come as well, but I think the Titans needed to be grounded, because they're currently 14-0 in the regular season, and the more you do that, the more you're at a possibility of going into the overall season playoffs too big-headed and taking seats for granted. I don't think Titans will do that now. Question is, can Titans bounce back after losing? Because an example I would use would be Runaway. They lost to Element Mystique, and then they lost to their playoff. They've lost 2 on the bounce now, Runaway, after going unbeaten for so long. So it could have a very bad mental effect on the Vancouver Titans, but I would expect them to bounce back. I really would. However, we have to talk about the Shock. The Shock, this was coming. This was absolutely coming. You could see it all staged. The absolute rage in the Shock's eyes. They wanted revenge over the Titans, and by Joe, they got it. So, I've been very impressed with the Shock this stage. Yes, it's been an easy fixture list, but Shock are impressing beyond all bounds right now. So, it's looking really interesting. Really, really interesting. And on the overall standings, when you look at Houston down in 18th, Valiant on the same record right now, but with the prospects of Houston different to the Valiant, I would expect Houston, Washington and Florida, they have to have a massive, massive stage 3 if they want a chance of season playoffs. If they don't, I'd expect them to be out of it. Big time. So, it's going to be really interesting stage 3. It's going to offer us some big matches, because in the first week we get to see New York Excelsior take on London, which will be a massive match. The first week is going to be interesting, no doubt, because you're going to have Dallas, Los Angeles Gladiators as well, which is also a big teller for Dallas. You're going to have Toronto Paris. That's going to be a really close match as well. You've got Shanghai Valiant. That's going to be a big teller where Valiant are at. But this is all for a Stage 3 preview, really. So that will come in all due time. And the question is, can the Atlanta Reign upset the Shock like they did Excelsior? Probably not, but who knows? But there are some big gains for different teams in this stage coming up. But I think the award for the hardest stage in Stage 3 has got to go to London. Because London have not only got to play New York Excelsior twice, but in Week 4 they'll have to play the San Francisco Shock as well. So I'm already nailing down 3 losses for London on the board here. So they have to win all of their other matches. Against the Valiant, against Washington. Well, that should be a win. If they lose to Washington, they don't deserve to be in playoffs. Sorry, Washington. Toronto and Boston, they have to win all those matches because I would have them down as losing against the Excelsior twice and then losing against the Shock. More the Shock than Excelsior, but I don't expect them to lose those 3 games. It's going to be a good Stage 3, I think. It's going to be interesting, and although we're probably not going to get this 2-2-2 roll lock now, we should still see some interesting Overwatch, hopefully. Especially with some big boys going up against each other. So, for now, I'm going to leave it here. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you'd like to give a like, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you in the next video. See you then.